What's up, guys? Tambo here with your Week 6 core report. It's an exciting time to be a Run Pure Sports member as we parlay another big week of winning with the start of the NBA season. Here's a recap of last week. No sports were off limits for winners this past week. Relay 20 hit for $8K on the NASCAR slate. Brad Combe won $5K in an MLB playoff slate. Max Hankins gave a preview of what members can expect, shipping for $21,000 in NBA preseason. Big T had another big week, hitting for over $37,000 in CFB. For the NFL main slate, GK 2400 won over $10K on FanDuel, while our guy Locks shipped an NFL Live final seat. But the biggest wins came on Monday Night Football, when the top of the leaderboard was littered with RPS logos again. JSU led the way with his core plays featuring Captain Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert and Joshua Palmer in the flex. His winning lineup was topped off with Russell Wilson and Dustin Hopkins, as well as low-owned $200 Greg Dulcich, who was talked up big on our free Monday Night Football Showdown show by special guest Chris Rando.
He's fast. He runs like a 4.7 40, and he can actually play the slot. He gives very difficult matchup situations. He's fast. He's got hands. Don't be surprised tonight if maybe he's out there in the mix and, he gets, a few catches and, who knows what happens.
This is your weekly reminder to head on over to our YouTube page and hit subscribe to access all of our great free content. Our guy Johnny AirPods wasn't the only one repping RPS at the top, shipping for over $50K. Matt Attack Lax ran the same lineup twice, shipping for over $95,000. Phil Mike's Bra also shipped for $10,000, while Nuggets hit for $14,000. Now is the time to join us. Head on over to runpuresports.com and sign up for a membership today. Again, all sports are included for one price, and NBA starts this week. You won't want to miss out when our team gets hot during hoop season. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Till next time, let's keep running pure.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the UFC Run Pure Sports Show, talking UFC 280, big pay-per-view tomorrow. I'm Draftcheat, of course, joined today by Titletown, No Keg. We've been off for a couple weeks, Title, at least from this show. The MMA world continues to churn, but with football, basketball, baseball, everything going on at Run Pure Sports, we've been off for a few weeks, but happy to be back for what I think is perhaps the best MMA UFC card of the year, UFC 280. How you doing? And I know you're excited for this card, so I don't even need to ask that question.
Oh, yeah, UFC 280. We're back. It's nice doing a show again. When football comes, college football, NFL, all of that, NBA now here. So much stuff going on. MMA shows got pushed to the wayside a little bit, but Playbook's always up. Core Play's always up. We're always in Discord talking fights, but UFC 280, man, this is what we've been excited for months. We've been talking about it for months. Had 14 fights earlier in the week. Unfortunately, we lost 2 throughout. So 30 minutes, lot got pushed back 30 minutes. Fights got pushed back 30 minutes. 10:30 a.m. Eastern in Abu Dhabi. Make sure you get those lineups in tonight. That's when I'll be doing my lineups. Hopefully wake up with no cancellations. I mean, what you get? Oliveira, Makhachev, the best fight of the year, in my opinion. I mean, you talk to anybody, it seems like they have different opinions on the fight, which is always what you like to see. Another title fight, Aljo, Dillashaw, O'Malley, Yan. I mean, you can go top to bottom on this card. I'm pumped, ready to talk some fights with you, DC.
Yeah, I think all 4 of those fights, you can throw in Gamrot and Dariush there too. I wouldn't really argue against anybody that kind of wanted to, go against what I think is going to happen in those fights. I think all of them, we all got our leans, but I do think all of them are going to be competitive fights, are going to be awesome fights. And I will say this, guys, talking about not having a show for a couple of weeks, hit the like button on this show. It does allow us to bring you this show free of charge, of course, most weeks. And listen, the more likes we get on the video, the more likely it's going to be out there each and every week for all UFC cards. So do us a favor, hit that like. It does help us out a ton. And let us know. Let the brass know and let them know you want this show each and every UFC card. 12 fights. We did lose a couple, but still 12 good fights. So let's dive right into it. We'll be talking betting as best we can. Of course, no Keg here, who is the expert on that, but we'll have our own leans. And then, of course, we'll have a DFS focus as well. I will add too, you mentioned the early start time, 10:30 Eastern time. A lot of these contests on DraftKings are starting to fill up already, nearly 24 hours before the card. I get why DraftKings made the contest a little bit smaller, a little bit disappointing.
They tweaked 28,000 in the main one. I mean, that's what it was last week. They raised it $10, but they tweaked.
Yeah, but the point is, if you want to get in these contests, do so soon, because they are going to fill up. Especially the bigger buy-in contests are, I think, like 2/3 full at the moment. So if you do want to get in, maybe jump in those contests during the show while you're watching. With that, let's get to the first fight on the card. We do start in the women's division. Rosa, Lena Landsberg. It is Rosa, one of the bigger favorites on the card, sitting around -330 to -340. Normally, Title, we sometimes fade these women's MMA fights. They obviously have fewer finishes, but Rosa's been a very good scorer. She does get takedowns. She throws a lot of volume, and she's a big favorite. So right off the bat, I do think we've got a fight here that you can't ignore for DFS purposes.
Yeah, I agree with you. Usually, like you said, I think you hit everything that I thought on the head. Usually you see a women's fight. We got 2 women's fights on this card. We're not being sexist or anything. It's proven that look at the numbers. Women's fights tend to finish less. They go to decision more than men's fights. DFS, you do want finishes on your mainly you want finishes first round, 90 points, second 70, etc. So that's why I don't target women's fights as much. And man, we just see it seems like all the time, like big women's or dogs come through, and the women's favorites aren't nearly as safe as the men's. So however, with all that being said, like you said, DC, we start in the first one, and I'm right back to the woman's favorite on this one. I mean, Lena Landsberg, she's 40 years old.
Yeah.
She's way over the hill. Like, I just do not think she's very good. She doesn't throw a lot of volume. She hasn't fought much in the past 2 years. She took 2 years off, over 2 years, coming into her last fight against Pandy Kanzat. She looked okay. I mean, she looked a little better than I expected, but still, she lost that fight by unanimous decision. Now she's coming back. In this one, taking on Rosa, who I think is even better than her last opponent in Kianza. Rosa, I mean, you look at her before her last loss, her last fight to Sarah McMahon, she was on a 4-fight winning streak, and a lot of people had some hype on her. I'm not saying she was going to be holding the belt one day, but 4-0, she throws a ton of volume, like you said, 6.65 significant strikes per minute. I don't think she's going to try and take this one to the mat. I think Landsberg will try and shoot for a couple takedowns, maybe. I don't think she'll have much success. I mean, Rosa's takedown defense was solid until we saw the last fight against Sarah McMahon, but Sarah McMahon's an Olympian wrestler. I mean, there's levels to this wrestling stuff. There's no chance that Landsberg's on the same level as McMahon. So I think Rosa can stuff the takedowns easily, keep it on the feet, and it should be her all day. And the big thing, like you said, the volume. Even in a decision win, if you go look at her DK scores, in 4 other fights that she did win, she scored 111, 109, 108, and 89. All of those by decision, mainly all kept on the feet. Just she throws that much volume. If you're landing 130, 140 significant strikes, you are going to score well. And not to mention, I think she gets a little overlooked in this upper tier range. Not going to be very low owned by any means, but man, she's right in the range of like Petrosian. You get Makayev way up there. You get Armin Petrosian, Bahalo. There's a lot of really good names up there in fights that are supposed to finish. I think people see it's going to go to decision. I think she gets pretty low owned, and she lands over 6 significant strikes per minute as one of the biggest favorites on the card. So no Landsberg for me, and I do have interest in Rosa. I'm going to try and get overweight, and I don't think it'll be too difficult.
Yeah, same page. I think she can win this fight really wherever she wants. I do think it'll be mostly on the feet, like you said, but if she wants to or needs to take it to the mat, I think she'll have success doing that. She's got some pretty good ground and pound when she chooses to go that route. So yeah, I think Rosa should start off the card with a pretty good score, at least by our expectation. And she is the second biggest favorite on this card. A lot of very closely line fights, a lot of like -200-ish range on I think like 8 or 9 of the 12 fights. So could be a wild card. We could see the dogs barking, but probably not in the next fight. We do have a massive favorite. It seems like we have one of these most cards, but Makayev, a lot of hype behind him. He's sitting around 1150 on DraftKings, minus 1500 on FanDuel, going up against Malcolm Gordon, who has actually won his last 2 fights in the UFC. But Makayev looks like the real deal. Had 12 takedowns in his last fight, a dominant decision win where he scored 120, put up 126 DraftKings points in his first fight, a quick first round sub. Curious why they have him on the spot in the card. It seems like you would maybe lead off the card with him, or I don't know. I might put him as the lead off to the main to the main card, the pay per view card. But in any case, Makayev, massive favorite here, by far the biggest favorite on the card. He is the most expensive fighter as well at 9,600. I'm pretty much buying the hype on this guy. I mean, I think you got to get as much as you can. Just tons of takedowns. He's obviously a massive favorite, and also is a fighter that fights in a way that scores a lot of DFS points. So I think whatever happens, assuming Makayev wins this fight, if it's early, great. If it's not, it's probably going to be a ton of takedowns and a big score anyway. So he seems, unless Gordon can pull off a kind of a miraculous upset, I think Makayev's probably going to put up a big score here.
You couldn't have said it any better. Pretty much every point you made. I mean, you look at all the studs on this slate: Islam, Oliveira, Dariush, Gamrot. I mean, this card's so stacked top to bottom, which is why this fight is where it is. I totally hear you. You look at the main fight, the prelims before we get to the main card, though. Sean Brady, Bilal Muhammad. Like, how do you say no to that fight? It just shows how great this card is. But it's one-way traffic, I think. Makayev, he looks like the real deal. Malcolm Gordon, I don't think he's very great. I mean, I think this is a step down for Makayev's last opponent, Charles Johnson, who put up a pretty good fight in that one, and you still saw it was Makayev all day. Dude is the real deal. The cardio's there. He's fit, like you said, he fits DK scoring as good as anybody, and he's 9,600, which I like. I mean, he could be 10,000 in this spot. But I think the point you made earlier, before even talking about this fight, with how many dogs we could see dogs barking on this card. Then you look at the 2 title fights, 8,400 and 7,800 and 8,500, 7,700. So we do have value on this card, or mispriced fights, to get someone like Makayev. I'm going to try and jam him in as much as possible. I mean, I'll lock in my 100 plus. I'll move on. I'll try and fill out 5 spots. I'll expect some dogs to be barking. If every single favorite wins, yeah, Makayev's probably not going to be on the optimal because of the price, but I expect some dogs to be there. I like the pricing of the main events to fit into Makayev. I mean, he rolls, take the minus 1,100, take your win, take your big score, whether it's inside the distance or decision, and move on is how I see it. So I don't need to waste your time pretty much breaking down this one.
Yeah, it's just a matter of Makayev when we're talking the big field stuff. Do you think he's got a better chance to end up on the optimal than what his ownership percentage will be, right? Is kind of the big question. And I personally think yes. I mean, what we're going to see him 50, 60% owned, something like that.
I don't even think he'll get like that.
Okay. Then
maybe the 50, but the 60, we don't see that too often. There's just so many guys up there. But regardless, I mean, I'm playing him.
Yeah, I think honestly is like most likely loss is like a disqualification or just something weird happening, right? So something weird like that, which obviously you're not
an injury, banana peel. I mean, we see it, but you hate it. It's not very often.
And you do see like massive favorites sometimes where the other guy, the one fighter who's not that great is a huge favorite because the other guy they're fighting is just a total bum. This is not really that case. He's a huge favorite because he is so good. He's also a 125er. You just like he's not gonna lay an egg. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna come out and do his thing. So barring some fluke, I do expect a big score from Makayev, and I'll be getting personally as much of him into my lineups as I possibly can. We'll keep it moving. Not a lot more to say on that one. Next fight, AJ Dobson and Armen Petrosian. It is Petrosian, pretty big favorite, minus 220 or so. We're going to see a lot of fights lined closely to that, minus 200 or so. So yeah, Petrosian, Dobson. Break it down for us. Is this one of the first fights where we could see an underdog coming through?
It definitely can. This is a fight I will definitely be playing some Dobson. This is just a fight I want to target a lot. For DFS, I mentioned the playbook last week, and some people have brought it up because I prefer 20 entry or more. I write the playbook for like the $3 20 entry max. There's a $1 150 max. You can throw 20 in. But instead of playing a single entry for $50. I like playing multiple lineups is how I approach MMA, and how I like to do it. Instead of like picking the winner of what you think every fight will be and like fading or hardly getting any of the other person, I try and pick out fights that I think the winner will score well on. And this is one of those fights. So it's totally fine. There's probably going to be new people watching this show because UFC 280 is so big. Totally fine to play two fighters, not in the same lineup, but two fighters in your script and multiple lineups, because I think this fight's going to end inside the distance. I don't think we're going to need the judges for this one. Armen Petrosian, AJ Dobson. The big thing with Armen Petrosian, next level striker, one of the best strikers in the sport. When it's on the feet, the other dude's in a lot of trouble. I mean, you look at two fights ago against Gregory Rodriguez, who Gregory Rodriguez is on an absolute roll. He's been printing for us. Petrosian lit him up on the feet, 127 significant strikes to Gregory Rodriguez's 61. The big thing, though, he won a split decision in that one. Could have went both ways. Takedown defense, though, is the biggest thing for Petrosian. When you're an elite striker like that, you have a striking background, you go to MMA, you're younger in your MMA career, you're usually not refined in everything. And that's where the takedown defense comes in, where it's very bad. Look at his last fight against Bahalo, where he's on this card. We're going to talk to him. Kyo's a complete stud, so I'm not taking too much of that fight into consideration in this one. But he got taken down 4 times, controlled for over 10 minutes in that fight, and you just can't win when you're on your back instead of the feet. Why I love this fight so much, there's nothing that I can see from AJ Dobson's tape that's going to show me that he is going to try and go for takedowns and just put on his wrestling shoes for 15 minutes. And even if he does, I think Petrosian game's good enough get up game is good enough to then not be on his back for 10 minutes. Dobson's no Bahalo by any means. So Dobson, he throws hammers as well. Petrosian, an elite striker. I don't think we see the judges. I think someone goes to sleep probably pretty early in this fight as well. But it's impossible for me to pick against Armen Petrosian in a striking match. So Petrosian, for me, I really do feel good about it. I think he does find I said second round knockout. I think he picks him apart early, starts breaking him down, finds the finish in the second. Dobson has the power. So what? 7,100. You need to take some shots on the dogs. He will be one of them I have in my pool, but I do feel good about Armen Petrosian by knockout. There's levels to striking. He's a very, very good striker in a fight that I think is going to stand the feet. Sign me up.
Like the Petrosian KO, TKO, it's like even plus 100 or so. I think is a decent way to go. And then this fight minus 270 to finish inside the distance. So fireworks expected between Petrosian and Dobson. No question about it. I mean, Petrosian coming off that loss, right, where he got taken down, controlled, couldn't use his striking. Was that back in July? I think you got to assume that he spent the last few months kind of just training that, right? Obviously, his striking is good to go. So perhaps he comes out with a better takedown defense. And Dobson, like you said, not a history, not a lot of tape as a wrestler, but when you're fighting someone like Petrosian, you would be kind of foolish not to at least try to have that be your game plan. I mean, who knows if he's able to execute or not, but should be an interesting one here. I'm with you. I think Petrosian knockout is the most likely outcome, but I could see this fight going Dobson's way with I wouldn't call it a lucky shot, but a puncher's chance. He does have power, or perhaps the wrestling. So I do think Dobson, worth taking a shot on. And if he does do the wrestling thing, he could potentially score pretty well too if he is able to control Petrosian on the ground with takedowns and ground control. So that's Petrosian. Dobson. Let's move on to the next fight. A mouthful here. Abubakar Namagomedov and Omar-Gajiev, I think is pretty good. There we go. 1 point for DC. It is Namagomedov, who's a pretty big favorite, sitting around minus 170. What do you see between these two titles?
Yeah, this is going to be the first one I take a dog shot on. You see the name Namagomedov, you are going to get love from the books, such as how it works. But Abubakar is not in the same. I mean, there's levels to everything. He ain't Habib. He ain't Syed. He definitely ain't Islam. Even though Makhachev obviously in the camp. I mean, the guy he's a solid fighter at the end of the day. He's 16-3-1 as a pro record. He doesn't fight very often at all, which I really don't like to see. He made his UFC debut from PFL November 2019, and then he took about 2 years off. Then his last fight was in March of 2021. So I don't like seeing the inactivity. I mean, he's a solid. The thing is, like Godzi and Abubakar, both of these guys seem like the same fighter to me, pretty much. Except one guy has a name Namagomedov, and one guy is coming off a UFC debut loss to Caio Bahalo, who we're talking about. Caio Bahalo's got walking around Abu Dhabi, seen a lot of guys he already beat up in this one. But Caio Bahalo is that good. I'm throwing the Ghazi Omar-Gajiev fight out of the. I mean, I'm just throwing it away. Came in 13-0 and then loses to Caio in his debut, taken down, controlled for over 10 minutes in that fight. That is what Caio does. He's a wet blanket when he gets to the mat. I think we see a better performance from Ghazi in the second walk to the UFC octagon. Before he came into the UFC, he was starching everybody. He finished 8 wins by KO, 3 wins by submission. The level of competition wasn't great, but there was hype on this guy coming in, and now it pretty much seems all thrown out just because he lost to Caio. Now he's a dog against Abubakar, who go to Abubakar. I mean, he's had some bad losses in his UFC career. His UFC debut was against David Zawada. He was a -300 favorite in that one. He gets submitted. A couple fights before that in the PFL, he was over a -1,000 favorite against this Pavel Kush dude. Got submitted in that one as well. That Pavel has now lost 3 fights after the Abubakar fight. Like, man, you're losing as -1,000 favorites, -300 favorites. And I do think Omar-Gajiev is a better fighter than both of those guys. So the line just feels off. Like, how can you back Abubakar at this price tag? You also look, Vegas thinks this fight goes to decision. It's pretty slight that they think that, but I cannot pay 8,700 for a fight that's supposed to go to decision in a competitive fight where I don't even think the guy's the best, should be the rightful favorite. I think the line is wrong completely. So do I love Ghazi and his upside for DFS? I don't know. I mean, I think both of them probably the ground game negates itself on the feet. I'll say Ghazi's a little better striker. Maybe Ghazi can mix in the takedowns at the end of the day, but I'll just take any win at 7,500 is how I see it. 75, sure, that could be enough on this card to be on the optimal if there's not a lot of dogs. So I'm just going to take, I think, what I believe to be even, if not Ghazi's the better fighter. The price is off. Nurmagomedov's baked in the line. The last fight's baked into the line. The recency bias from Ghazi's debut. I'm going to jump on the 13-1 guy. And yeah, I don't think Abubakar's that great, to be honest.
Yeah, when there's fewer fights on the card, 12 fights on this card, normally you see 13, 14, 15 sometimes. Obviously, the smaller score can get to the optimal if they're an underdog, right? And especially when you see a massive favorite like Makayev, who we expect to put up a big score at 9,600, you're going to have to take a couple dogs along the way. So you might not need a massive score. Ghazi, a win at 7,500, like you said, might get it done. I was laughing at the ceremonial weigh-in photos. There's so many like contentious stare downs, and then these two guys are like arm in arm, like hugging it out. They look like the exact same dude. I hope they have different color shorts on, because otherwise it might be hard to choose.
And they fight very similar.
I know,
that's the thing. Like, so that's what I'm kind of like going back to the dog. Like, why not? Like everything, they feel the same.
Yeah, well, when I do my research and look at the tape, like I came out with the same conclusion that you had. I actually thought Ghazi. I do that before I look at the lines, and I thought Ghazi was going to be a slight favorite actually in this one. So anytime you can get a fighter as an underdog or in DFS as a lower priced guy that you think should rightfully be favored in the fight, that's a spot you're going to want to invest in. So we're on the same page there. Ghazi thinks he's got a good chance to pull off this upset. Let's move to the next fight on the card. It is Nikita Krylov and Volkan Oezdemir. It is Krylov, who is a relatively small favorite, sitting around -170 to -180, depending on where you look. What do you see between Krylov and Oezdemir?
Very similar fight to 2 fights ago with Petrosian and Dobson, and that is look at the inside of the distance prop. The fight's definitely supposed to finish. Vegas thinks. I agree with it. You look at Nikita Krylov. He has a 28-9 record, 37 fights. Only 3 times has he gone to decision, win or loss. That is, sign me up for a fighter that just does not see the cards, and that's what the fights you do want to target. Now he takes on Volkan Oezdemir. This is an interesting one because on the feet, I definitely expect it to be competitive. I give the slight advantage to Volkan Oezdemir, and I think that's just because I believe he hits harder than Krylov. It's competitive on the feet, and I do think it stays on the feet because Krylov, way more well-rounded. Volkan, he definitely will not be going for the takedowns. He wants to keep it on the feet. He wants to strike. He just fought Paul Craig, stuffed all 15 of the 15 takedowns. But Krylov is definitely more well-rounded, 12 wins by submission, or 12 wins by KO, 13 by submission, I believe. 15 by submission, excuse me, 12 by KO. He's just well-rounded. He can take the fight wherever, and he has a lot of success. I just do not think he can take down Volkan Oezdemir in this fight, who is known for very good takedown defense, sitting at 87%.
Yep.
Like I said, just 15 to Paul Craig's. Paul Craig doesn't have the best takedown entries, but Krylov isn't known for just great takedown entries either. Just when the fight's on the mat, he does do very well work, or does do really good work. I don't think he can take down Volkan. And if you don't think he can take down Volkan, you're telling me where they're going to be striking for 15 minutes, banging it out. I think Volkan hits harder. Krylov, very good striker himself, just knocked out Gustafsson. I threw that fight out the window. I mean, Gustafsson
He's done, man. Gustafsson is, he's
we were all over Krylov in that last fight too. I mean, for those same reasons. So I'm throwing that one out. I think a lot of people could have knocked out Gustafsson that night. The one concern with me, I am going to take the dog because I think it stays on the feet. I think it should be a coin flip at worst if it does stay on the feet. So Volkan is definitely my pick. The one concern though is his last performance against Paul Craig, unanimous decision. He gets the job done, stuffs 15 to 15 takedown attempts, but he really didn't look great. He looked a little sluggish to me. Maybe that was just because he was doing everything. He was minding his P's and Q's, not to get the fight on the mat by any means. He knew he could outpoint him, even though he wasn't at his best or at his fastest, but he cannot come out this weekend looking like that. Others, Krylov probably will put him away, but Volkan, only 33 years old, Krylov, 30 years old. They are older than what their age says. I mean, they've had a lot of pro fights. They fought the best competition. They've been in the UFC for a while. But the line, it should be a coin flip if it's on the feet. I do not think it gets to the mat. Dog or pass. I saved $1,000 in salary. I'm not fading Krylov by any means. This is a fight I really like to target. But when it comes to betting, when it comes to making a pick, I am going to take Volkan, the 1,000 savings in the dog money.
Yeah, makes sense. I like Volkan maybe win this one via KO. You can get it around plus 300 on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I like
That's
that.
my pick too. I think either one is probably going to be by KO. I don't think we see the judges.
Yeah, and the fight against Craig, you mentioned, he didn't look that great. I don't know. Fighting Paul Craig is just like, it's like a unique experience that really doesn't pertain to this fight, in my opinion, whatsoever. Like Craig, just like that submission artist, right? He's just not completely different, I think, than what we'll see in this fight. So I don't hold that against him too much. I do think Volkan, plus 150 or so, another fighter that can help you fit in some of the studs. So yeah, 2 in a row there, Gadzhi and Oezdemir. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw back-to-back upsets on these 2 fights. We'll keep it moving. A guy that's come up a couple times already, Bahalo and Mahmoud Muradov going to fight here. It is Kyle, who is a pretty decent favorite, sitting around minus 210. We've seen some pretty dominant performances from him, 2 fights in a row, 2 decision wins, but over 2 good fighters who we just talked about. Didn't score that well in either of them, just didn't throw much volume, right? He's kind of a control fighter, not much of a ground and pound guy. So that does make for kind of an interesting equation when breaking down this fight from a DFS perspective. What do you see between these two? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because this is one I feel a little bit lost on for DFS.
Yeah, well, exactly. Very similar thoughts to what you said. He's a position over submission and ground and pound fighter. He's a very, very smart fighter. His best attribute probably is his fight IQ. I mean, he knows. You look at the Armin Petrosian fight. You look at the fights, like why strike with Armin? He's not going to try and strike with someone that he knows he can't strike with. He's a well-rounded fighter. His striking, I think, is solid. We don't see much of it because his ground game, his takedown entries is very good. And when it's on the mat, people just can't get up. He's so heavy on top. He's so good at moving to different positions, always staying one step ahead. And I think we see that same thing in this fight. I mean, Muradov is a striker at the end of the day. He's a very dangerous striker. 17 of his 25 wins have come by KO. But just go to his last fight against Mearshart, where he was a big, big favorite. Muradov was putting it on him in the first round. He was hurting Mearshart, but with all that volume, the cardio started to fall off a bit. GM3 kept eating the shots, and he secured 3 takedowns of his own until he found his own submission win. If GM3's taking you down 3 times, Kyle Bahalo is probably going to be taking you down at will whenever you want, and you aren't getting up when he does. So now it comes to the point. Kyle is definitely my pick in this one. I think he's a very good fighter. I'll plan on backing him for a while. I actually do like this minus 200 price tag too. I think you can throw him in parlays. My favorite parlay we'll get to later. Peter Yan and Kyle. I'm definitely betting that one, and it is close to even money. But back to this fight, DFS wise, he's 9,000. Like you said, even though he has won both of his fights, he hasn't scored great because he's positioned over submission and ground and pound. I think he can get the submission in this one. I am going to say he does. Muradov's 4 of his 7 losses have come by submission. If I think this fight takes place on the mat for 10 plus minutes of 15, if that's what it goes to, I'm going to say he can find one. I think he doesn't want to be known as a decision fighter. It's the biggest moment, UFC 280. If it's on the ground that much, he's very special when it gets down there. I'm going to say he does find the submission at some point. However, with that being said, there's still other fighters in the upper tier that I like more. I mean, we were talking about Armen Petrosian. We're going to be talking about guys later in the card too. Even Islam, Oliveira, the 2 main events, all 4 of them I like more for cheaper. Karol Rosa against Kaio is an interesting one. I lean Rosa as well, even though I think that goes to decision. I think Kaio can finish by submission. I still know, even in the decision, the upside is there where maybe Kaio finds a second round submission, a third round, and it just doesn't score that well still. So I like him. I think he's a better money line pick. I play 150 lineups, all of that. I will definitely have some Kyle, but he is not my favorite in the top tier because, like you said, position over submission, ground and pound, even though my official prediction is Kyle by sub.
Yeah, the problem with Kaio, I'm with you. I do think he wins this fight. I like the minus 200 as a bet, and even you can even hit the the submission prop. But like you said, if it happens in the second or third round at 9K, he might not get there, right? Because he might not have many points when that occurs. I mean, even in the first round, right? If he just gets the sub, it's possible.
You'll always take a first round finish,
of course,
for sure.
You'll take it, but not guaranteed to get there. So it does worry me a little bit from a DFS perspective. But of course, we could see like Muradov just did not look good on the ground. So we could see Kaio kind of dominate him. Maybe he does a little more ground and pound, gets the submission early and puts up a big score. So you got to have some exposure if you're playing multiple lineups. But I am a little bit worried about his upside, or at least the likelihood that he gets to his upside. So that's Kaio and Muradov. Let's move on to the next card. Another awesome fight here. Belal Muhammad, slight underdog, sitting around plus 115 to the undefeated Sean Brady. This one should be fantastic. We've seen Belal Muhammad. I wouldn't call him it's not fair to call him a gatekeeper, I don't think, because he has had some impressive wins, but I don't see him necessarily as a title contender or someone that's going to hold the belt at any point. But I do like him as a fighter. And then, of course, Sean Brady's been extremely impressive. 5 straight wins in the UFC, 2 of them via submission. I'm excited for this one and excited to hear who your pick is here, because I'm a little torn between these 2 titles.
Yeah, great fight. The closest line fight on the card. Yep. I mean, 2 very good fighters. And why it's so exciting is we all know Belal Muhammad. I mean, he has fought the best of the best. He cashed for us as a dog last fight against Vicente Luque, beats Wonderboy Thompson, Diego Lima in there. I mean, he's fought Jeff Neal. You go down, he's fought the best of the best, and he's fought him for a long time. Whereas Sean Brady, he's the new hype product. He's 15-0. His wrestling's very good. Beat Michael Chiesa, Jake Matthews, Court McGee. Like, his wins are solid. Yes, a good win for sure. Jake Matthews, that win is aging very well. He looked like a stud last fight. I'm excited to see Jake Matthews fight. But this is a big step up in competition still to Belal Muhammad. And what makes this fight so interesting, it reminds me of the Nick Maximov and Jacob Malkoun fight last week. We have 2 primary wrestlers going at it. And when that happens, what we usually see is either one is just a level above, like we saw last week with Malkoun. Yes, Maximov got injured. I do have to mention that. So maybe the fight would have played out differently. Or we see the wrestling negate itself and we see a striking match for 15 minutes, which usually ends up being pretty bad if they're 2 primary wrestlers. But I think both of these guys, I think Sean Brady's striking is better than what people give him credit for. His wrestling is just top notch. He's not a great striker by any means. And Belal Muhammad can definitely strike too. I mean, we've seen it. So I think what's going to happen is the latter, where it does stay on the feet. Brady's going to want the takedowns. I don't think we see Bilal shoot for too many takedowns. I think he'll keep it on the feet. Sean Brady will always shoot for takedowns. His wrestling is that good, averages 3.22 takedowns per 15 minutes. But Bilal Muhammad's takedown defense is next level at 92%. His movement on the feet is part of the reason what makes his takedown defense so good. His sprawls are good. His offensive wrestling is good. Like everything on the ground with him is good, which is why he stuffs so many takedowns. And what I love even more is he went to Beef's camp. He's training lately with the Islams of the world and all that. I mean, that only makes you a better wrestler, a better defensive wrestler, and all of that. Open minus 225 did Bilal. And Sean Brady, it was a weird line opening because I knew how many people love Sean Brady. It still felt really, really wide as the opening. But now Brady's the favorite, which you don't see very often. And there's pretty constant money coming in on Sean Brady too. It wasn't just like one big bet that moved him as a favorite. He's had constant money coming in on him. Now sitting minus 135, 115. I don't think this fight hits the mat much. If Sean Brady does get a takedown, I think Bilal's able to get back up. I don't think there's too much control. Don't think Bilal's going to get his own offensive takedowns really. So if this fight's on the feet for 15 minutes, I'm going to give the advantage to Bilal Muhammad. He throws more volume. He's fought better people on the feet. He's more comfortable. He has more experience on the feet, cuts off the cage well. Just all of that. I mean, Bilal is a fighter, very smart, fights for your money. He's been in every situation. He has the experience. And I'm now getting dog money against a guy that is taking a big step up in competition. I love Sean Brady. I just think it's a really tough matchup for him. And I get dog money on a guy that just keeps cashing for me as dog money. So Bilal's going to be my pick. Talking about it for DFS wise, I don't love this fight too much. It's a scary one. This is why I play multiple lineups. I'm going to hedge some with Sean Brady because if he wins and his wrestling is on another level, I mean, we saw Jacob Malkoun put up 130 last week. Two wrestlers going at it usually is something I love for DFS. I'm taking the contrarian approach, thinking it stays on the feet. So this fight, I will be more underweight on. But there is a path. Brady is a wrestler. If he does, his wrestling's on another level and Bilal can't stuff him. He has 100+ point upside for sure. But Bilal's my pick. Think it stays on the feet. Think his striking's a little better. And I'll take the dog money.
Yeah, couple things I will say just from a DFS theory, strategy, entertainment standpoint for any new people that are big card. Maybe I'm sure we have a bunch of new people watching. If you're playing $50, you're much better off making 10 lineups for $5 each than you are putting $50 into one lineup, right? Because you're watching the card, you have one fight go against you early on, and all of a sudden your DFS day can be over. It's just, and also it's just you have a better chance to get to the optimal and get some money back, even if obviously you're not that likely to get there to begin with. So I'll say that. From a DFS perspective, fight wise, I agree with most of what you said. I mean, when I introduced the fight, and you could kind of maybe people could tell it's kind of lukewarm. I like Bilal Muhammad as a fighter, but I think the reason the money's come in on Sean Brady, just that undefeatedness, right? Where we've seen Bilal Muhammad, we kind of know, or we think we know that he's probably not the very best of the best, and maybe we're not sure that Sean Brady can't be that. I don't think he'll be that, but anytime a fighter is undefeated, I think they get some extra hype behind him. We'll talk about that when we get to the main event of this card. So I'm with you. I think Bilal Muhammad probably has a good chance at least to pull off this upset. But DFS wise, I kind of think these two cancel each other out. I think they will both shoot for takedowns or go for control against the cage. I could see this fight up against the cage more often than maybe people expect. I think it's going to be evenly matched. What is it, minus 250 to go to decision? And neither of these fighters are particularly cheap, right? Both, neither of them has any chin issues. I just think this fight is likely to be fairly low scoring. Should be an awesome scrap just watching the fight. And I'm with you on the Bilal Muhammad dog pick. But DFS wise, I'll have limited exposure to this one. And hope that it, gets into the third round, goes the distance, and neither of these guys, score 100+ DraftKings points. So that's Brady, Muhammad. Let's get to the main card. We do start off in the women's division. Caitlin Chookagian, the one fighter to miss weight on this card. Didn't miss it by too much, I don't think. She is a pretty big underdog, sitting around plus 180 to Manon Fiorot. Chookagian, Fiorot, what do you see here, title?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Caitlin Chookagian because it won't take me too long. I mean, you look at she's 18-4. I mean, she's the definition of a way better real life fighter than a DFS fighter. She's known for making her noise. Every time she throws a strike, she makes noise. The judges count it. She's 18-4, but 15 of her 18 wins have gone by decision. If you go look at her DraftKings scores and all of that, she's only scored over 85 once. And every other single fight was below 85. I don't care at 7,300. I'm just not playing her at the end of the day. And it makes it very easy to do that as well, because I think I really like what I've seen from Manel Fiorot. She's treated us very well so far in the UFC. She is getting a big step up in competition in this one, but she's 4-0. Every time she goes out there, she just gets the job done and she looks very good. She's very well-rounded on the feet. She lands 6.6 significant strikes per minute. She has power at the end of her shots. She mixes it up very well. She's just a better striker than pretty much everyone in the division. After the first fight, I was calling for it. I know a lot of people in Discord were like, this is who Valentina needs to fight. We need new blood in this division. Fiorot looks very solid. This is the fight that has to happen. And it is the fight that has to happen. I think after she wins, Taila Santos looked very good. So who knows what's going on there. But Fiorot is, I mean, she's just skilled everywhere. We just do not see, she's levels above the mixed martial artists right now in the women's division is how I see it. If it gets the mat, sure. Look at what you just did with Jennifer Maia. The one thing you don't do with Jennifer Maia, especially Manel Fiorot, who could keep it on the feet, piece her up at will, is go to the mat with her. And she did go to the mat with her. I think she got 2 takedowns in that fight. She was safe on top. She never really seemed to be in any problem. I think she could do that to Caitlin if she wants to in this fight. Caitlin's known for her striking, but if Fiorot wants to mix it up, get her own takedown, get some ground and pound on the mat as well, I think she can have a lot of success doing that. So I think it's Fiorot wherever she wants it. Now it comes to DFS, she's 8,900. I like other people in the upper range more at 8,900. So I won't have as much, even though I think she wins. I'm going to bank Caitlin. It's tough enough. It goes a decision. Would I be surprised if Fiorot knocks her out or something? No, but you have to make some stands. You can't play everyone. If I was only playing 5 lineups or less, I probably wouldn't have any Fiorot. I play 150. I do not fade fighters, especially like that, where I think they're going to win. But yeah, DFS wise, it's Fiorot by decision. I don't love it at 8,900. Definitely don't like Chookagian at 7,300. So not a fight I have too much interest in, but one I'm excited for, and it means a lot for the division. Oh, this whole main card is stacked. So all these fights are good.
Yeah, I think, we talked early on in the show, Makayev not, being so far down the card. And then this fight being the opener to the pay-per-view card. Seems like UFC is in on Fiorot, right? They want her to win this fight. They the women's division kind of wanting for talent to fight for titles, and Chookagian, a well-known name that can kind of propel Fiorot, who's obviously a little bit newer to the UFC, kind of up the ranks, in terms of the public eye and all that stuff, makes the fight a little bit easier to sell, title fight, if Fiorot is able to get there. So I'm with you. I'm a little bit surprised. Fiorot's not a bigger favorite than she is, sitting around -220. I do think she pulls this one out probably rather easily. And I don't know. I think, if she's as so much better than Chookagian that we think she is, perhaps we see an early finish. She did have 2 finishes in the second round in those in her first 2 fights, and she scored very well in those. She does throw some pretty good volume. So I am interested in Fiorot for DFS. I do think she gets the job done here. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. Another good one between Beneil Dariush and Mateusz Gamrot. It is Gamrot with the pretty big favorites in around -200. What do you see between these two?
See a great fight, as all these fights are.
Yeah.
I mean, this fight is number 5 Gamrot, number 5 Beneil Dariush. Means a lot for the lightweight division. Again, this fight's similar to the Brady and Muhammad fight, similar to the Maximov Malkoun fight of last week, where you look at these two guys and you think of their wrestling, you think of their grappling, their ground game, and all of that. When you get that, what happens? It either negates itself, or one person seems to be on another level than the other, and they just dominate. I think it mainly negates itself again. I think we mainly see it play out on the feet. If someone is getting the offensive takedowns, I think it'll be Gamrot. Beneil Dariush is definitely a very good wrestler, definitely very good on top. The reason I say that, though, is, I mean, Gamrot's takedown defense, just go to the last fight with Mateusz Gamrot against Arman Tsarukyan. And man, was I impressed. I was all over Arman Tsarukyan. I think Arman Tsarukyan's a stud. I thought he could have some success with the takedowns. Gamrot stuffed Tsarukyan only went 1 of 8 for takedowns. The scrambles from Gamrot were amazing. Like, I just do not think people can hold this guy down and have success, especially Beneil Dariush. So that's why I'm saying Dariush isn't getting him. If Gamrot mixes them in, yeah, I don't think I'd be too surprised. I think he could, but I mainly think it stays on the feet.
Yep.
And it'll be a great scrap, I think, when it is on the feet. Again, 2 guys that are known for their ground game, but when you're number 5 and number 7 in the division, in the most stacked division, it's not like you're a one-trick pony. These guys can strike at the end of the day. Dariush has more power on the feet than Gamrot. His striking is solid. Gamrot, I expect to throw more volume on the feet. Also good movement himself. The one thing that stands out in this fight, though, which is why I'm going to pick Gamrot, is Beneil Dariush's chin is not good. It's been a while since we've seen it. People haven't really been talking about it too much because on this win streak, he has he's taken down every single opponent that he's been on. So he's been on the mat mainly. Just go back to the Alexander Hernandez fight, though. He's had multiple fights in the UFC. 3 of his 4 losses are by KO. He doesn't take a punch well. And if I think this fight's going to be on the feet for 15 minutes, I think he's going to get that chin cracked at some time. And Gamrot's a stud. I think he will, when he does find him hurt, he does end up finishing the fight at some point. So give me Gamrot by KO. Dariush is mainly a bet against his chin. I don't think he can have success taking him down. He has power himself. He can hurt Gamrot, but I trust Gamrot's chin more than I do Dariush's.
Yeah, but kind of a bad matchup, I think, here for Dariush. Not that he's drawing dead or anything, but Gamrot might just be a little bit better everywhere. And maybe that's reflected in the line, but, minus 200, nothing crazy there. So I'm with you. I think Gamrot probably does pull off this win. You think he gets the finish against Dariush?
I'm saying by KO. I mean, I like I said, of course, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Vegas, that plus 110 the fight doesn't go to decision, plus 120 at other places. But I think the books are counting that this fight plays out on the mat more than I believe it does. So 15 minutes for that chin. We haven't seen it in a while, but his chin in the past has been very, very poor. And 15 minutes is a long time against someone like Gamrot. So that's my prediction. You get a pretty good line on it as well.
Yeah, plus 460 at Bet Rivers for Gamrot by KO. DraftKings has it at plus 420, so a nice plus number there if you want to go with Gamrot.
FanDuel plus 420, DK plus 350, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yep, FanDuel plus 420, and then Bet Rivers does have the best line at 460 there. All right, let's get to the 3. I guess a lot of good fights on this card, but I do think these 3 kind of stand out above the rest. First one, Petrosian and Sean O'Malley. We've been riding the O'Malley train basically since his UFC debut. He's been fantastic. A lot of hype behind him. Guy that knows how to promote himself. 15-1. He goes up against Petrosian, who is coming off of a decision loss to Aljamain Sterling. We'll have to talk about him next, where he got controlled on the ground. He was a pretty big favorite in that fight, right after the disqualification in the first one. Was impressive bout from Sterling for sure, but this fight certainly fits Petrosian's style a lot more than it does the last one. I know you teased it earlier. You're obviously on the Petrosian side here. I'm with you. The line is pretty wide here. It is Petrosian sitting around minus 265. Looks like the best line you can get over at DraftKings. I just think he's going to be too fast for Sean O'Malley is what I think. His hands are going to be too fast. He's going to beat him to the punch is how I see this one going down. But, Sean O'Malley, a good striker, a lot of power in his own right. So I'm looking forward to this one. I do think Jan does emerge victorious, but a very wide line. And Sean O'Malley, I believe, is the cheapest fighter on the card. No, well, Malcolm Gordon, but no one's picking him at 6,600. I think O'Malley is the cheapest fighter with the legitimate shot to win. You're obviously on the Jan side, so break it down for us, Title.
Yeah, it's easy for me because I picked Pedro Munoz last fight against Sean O'Malley at plus 300 or right around there. So how would I not pick who I believe to be the best bantamweight in the world against Sean O'Malley? The big thing why I picked Pedro Munoz was the leg kicks. He won the first round. Sean O'Malley, he took the leg kicks much better. He checked some of them. He didn't check a ton of them. It was going to be 1-1 going into the third. O'Malley looked to be getting some steam, but still, he was a big underdog in that fight. Petr Yan, though, I mean, talk about leg kicks. The dude's leg kicks are absolutely insane. His striking is very good. The one thing, if you are a Sean O'Malley backer in this fight, it's 3 rounds instead of 5 rounds, which is very good for Sean O'Malley because Petr Yan is known for starting slow. He gets his reads, he finds out what his opponent's doing, takes over as the fight goes on in 5-round fights. He can't lose 2 rounds and then try and win the 3rd round. So that is a good thing for Sean. I trust the coaches. I trust Petr Yan not to fall behind early. I just think he's better wherever the fight goes. There is a big height and reach advantage for O'Malley, but Petr Yan's striking defense is so good. He's very hard to hit. His power, he has a huge power himself. This is such a big step for Sean O'Malley. Like, we're big fans. We're all over him by the time, or for everyone who was fighting. I jumped off last fight, but those guys were not even close to the best guys in the world. Like, is Sean O'Malley a top 10 bantamweight? Maybe around 10, 15, maybe. He's not top 5 in my opinion. I think the line's justified for sure. It was minus 250 yesterday on FanDuel. I now see minus 310. Unfortunately, I think there's a very easy path for Petr Yan, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it. Takedown, get the fight on the mat, and I think he can absolutely style on bounce his head off the canvas a couple times, maybe even find a sub. Who even knows? I think he can do whatever he wants on the mat, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does take it down there. But I think it's Petr Yan all day, whether it's the feet, the mat. Just think there's levels to this, and I mean, I would bet Petr Yan against Aljo, Dillashaw. You know what I mean? Even though he lost last fight, doesn't change how I think of the guy. So props to Sean O'Malley for taking this fight. He definitely did not need to take this big of a step up, but now he wins this fight. He's getting the title shot, so totally makes sense why he does. Great fight, but yeah, it's Petr Yan for me for sure.
Yeah, 2 highly motivated fighters here for sure. Yan, trying to get back into the title picture, which I do think if Yan wins this fight and Dillashaw beats Aljamain, I think Yan probably jumps right back into the title fight. And then, O'Malley wins. He gets the winner of those 2, right? I would say almost certainly. So
yeah, Dana said winner of this fight gets the shot.
Okay, so we'll get the trilogy fight then if Yan and Sterling both win, which is that'll be interesting if that goes down. Like I said, I don't know if Yan will shoot for the takedowns. If he does, though, I think he'll get them. Like, O'Malley has the height, the reach advantage, but
Jan's been training with Arman Sarukian too. He looks like I think he definitely gets him.
Yan is not the type, you lose the 2 fights to Sterling, you lose the belt. I don't think Yan is the type to, pout about that. I think that's motivation for him to get back in there. So I'm with you. I think Petr Yan can win this fight wherever it goes. I do think O'Malley is a live dog, but this fight could also, it was interesting. I think Yan opened up a huge favorite, and then the money came in, I believe, on O'Malley, and now it's maybe going back the other way. But Petr Yan, I do think he gets the job done here at 9,300. Do you think he scores well enough for DFS? I could see.
That's the big thing. So he's 9,300. I like Makayev a lot more for 9,600 without a doubt. I wish I knew, like, if he doesn't go for the takedown, right, which we think he can, then no, I really don't like him too much. I think maybe a 3rd round finish, a decision, something like that, if it's a striking match. So I like others in the upper tier more is how I see it.
Have we seen O'Malley's chin get tested? Like, he's just fought guys that most of the time he's fought people that he's way better striker than, right? Now we think it's the opposite. Yan is a guy who lands a lot, right? Very, very fast hands, great boxing, leg kicks, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, you go through who he's fought, like Quinones, Eddie Wyland, Thomas Almeida.
If Yan is landing clean, which we both think he probably can and will, I wouldn't be surprised if O'Malley goes down.
For sure.
We just don't know. I know.
I mean, when the going gets tough, how is he going to respond? Yeah, we saw the Chito Vera injury, but we don't know.
We don't know the answer to that question, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is kind of a wake up call here to Sean O'Malley and his fans,
especially if those legs start going, because I believe the legs are going to start and then everything opens up.
And I do think that the line is, betting wise, is maybe held in check here because O'Malley's got a lot of fans, right? And you see him sitting around there at plus 230, plus 240. Hard not to take
what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So Petr Yan seems like the sharp money here for DFS and betting especially. I think he gets the knockout is the way I'm going to go. What's the line on the Petr Yan knockout? Yeah, plus 320 over at FanDuel. I like that quite a bit for Petrosian. All right, let's get to the two title fights on this card. Aljamain Sterling defending the belt after the 2 wins over Petrosian and against TJ Dillashaw, coming off a big win over Corey Sandhagen himself, a good 5-round decision win there. Obviously, 2 very good fighters here. It is Sterling, who is the moderate favorite, sitting around minus 170 or so. I'm curious to hear where you're going with this one, Title. I'm still torn on who's going to win this one. Was pretty impressed by Sterling in that last fight, but this is a different fight against TJ Dillashaw, who's got some wrestling chops of his own. So break it down for us, Sterling Dillashaw.
This was the hardest fight on the card for me,
Yeah.
which I think says a lot. I mean, I was going back and forth on it pretty much all week. I even went from Thursday
Same.
or Wednesday to Thursday when I was writing this fight up in the playbook. I switched my pick again. And I don't want to ruin the next fight. It's part of it. So I'll just start with this one. So Aljo, what is he best at? Getting the fight on the mat, his grappling. Once he takes your back, it's pretty much all she wrote. Go look at what he did to Corey Sandhagen and watch that fight. It won't take too much of your time because it was ended quick. But he took Corey down quick. He took his back, and it was all she wrote. He made Corey look like a guy outside the top 25, which was absolutely insane. One of the best performances you'll see. TJ just fought Corey Sandhagen. I thought Corey Sandhagen won the fight.
Yeah.
It was a really close fight. There's no robbery by any means, but it's a completely different fight from this one. It was his first fight back in a while as well. You look at TJ's age, he's getting up there a little bit, but I mean, he still looks, you look at how shredded he looks and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying prime. I mean, prime was, he was on his stuff, but he's still a very, very talented fighter. So I'm not going to think that he's washed or any of that. I think we see a very good Dillashaw, a very good Sterling. And it just comes down to, as we've talked about a lot of these fights, the Brady fight, I forget the other fight, or the Gamrot and Neil Dariush fight. Can Sterling get the fight on the mat where he wants it? And I just don't think he can. TJ Dillashaw is known for some of the best takedown defense in the UFC. It's sitting at 86%. When he is taken down, his get up game is very good. If Aljo is able to get his back like he did Petrosian's, Aljo is going to be able to control him the whole round, is how I see it. I mean, his back take, his body triangle is absolutely insane. But TJ obviously knows that's what Aljo wants. His takedown defense is always checked out. When he is taken down, he gets back up. So I'm going to say, and maybe this is, I see the underdog price tag. I want to take underdogs on this card. It's very easy to make a case for him. But if his takedown defense keeps checking out and this fight stays on the feet for 25 minutes, I favor TJ Dillashaw. Now, Sterling striking is not bad by any means. It's very, very much improved. He throws a lot of volume. He does have to learn how to pace himself, which is a concern. We know TJ Dillashaw has 25-minute cardio. Aljo should too. I mean, he does. But if it's a striking match for 25 minutes and not on the mat like some of his last fight, we saw how that first fight went against Petrosian, where you throw the gas tank at him, the kitchen sink, the first 3 rounds, and he slows down in the 4th or 5th. I just think TJ striking is better. I think he will be the one with a lot of forward pressure. Aljo was the one against Petrosian with a lot of forward pressure. They're just 2 different stylistic matchups at the end of the day. Petrosian, I think, is better than both of them, but it's just completely different fight. If this fight can't get to the mat for Aljo, which I'm going to say it doesn't, and it stays on the feet, I think Dillashaw is the harder hitter. I think he'll have a lot of forward pressure. I think he's a better striker. Again, I don't know if it's the dog money talking me into it and all of that, but I'm going to say TJ Dillashaw gets the job done. It was the hardest pick of the week for me. I went back and forth. It just comes down to, I don't think Aljo will get the back. And if I don't think that is his biggest strength. So I'm going to take the dog money and the 800 savings. But man, I want to hear if I talk to you into any way, what your thoughts are, because it's really, really tough.
It is tough. I could see this fight ending a number of different ways. It is like minus 190 to go to decision, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like Aljo's that submission win over Sandhagen, he could do something like that here.
If he gets his back, it's probably all she wrote for a long time. Yeah,
because Dillashaw's not used to training off of his back, right? As a wrestler himself, a guy who doesn't get taken down ever. He's got the great takedown defense, which he kind of relies on. But if that falters, if this does get to the mat, it could be quick for Sterling. So I kind of like, we don't love to play both sides, but I kind of like betting Aljo by submission and then taking Dillashaw more in DFS. because I do think if Aljo gets there, probably is a submission that could come at any time too. So this could be a potential live betting opportunity. You know, you get to the fourth round of this fight, obviously a 5-rounder. Dillashaw has kind of, you know, controlled it on the feet more. I think Sterling is a live dog in this fight at any point. So you can get a big plus, you know, as long as he's not completely gassed or something like that. You can get a big plus number live betting wise. I like that. I think DFS wise, Dillashaw with the savings is probably the better play, but I will have exposure to both guys for sure. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing how it goes down. I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in this one, but certainly looking forward to watching. It should be a great fight between Aljo and Dillashaw. We'll get to the main event. Before we do, I got to say, we got a lot of free content coming up throughout the day. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any of it. Hit the like button. Allows us to bring you all this free content, including this show, most weeks for UFC, of course, all pay-per-view cards. And if you do want to join the movement, a lot of winners recently. We've got Hoops, $1 million win. Of course, Big T, absolutely on fire all year long. Tambo with the 100K win in single entry, I think, in DFS last night.
It was MME, but still, it was sick.
Well,
$5 into 100K.
Yeah, solo shipper on a 2-game slate. So that'll do it. Tambo's been on fire. We've got NFL, of course, baseball playoffs still going on. You know, the sports calendar never rests, and neither do we over at Run Pure Sports. So if you do want to join us, RPS Heater 25 will give you 25% off your first month's payment.
Before we get to the main event, who do you got in the winning the World Series? Now that the playoffs have started, you've seen how teams are going. You got who's your team?
Has to be the Astros.
Astros.
I mean, yeah, that were my pick from the beginning. Not who I was cheering for, but they just have the postseason experience. They've got the pitching. And then, yeah, I think the big thing is they just know how to get it done in October. That means something. The bullpen's been outstanding as well. So that's enough baseball talk. Yeah. People are here for the fights, but I
had to hear. We don't talk baseball anymore, so I had to get your prediction.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to the main event fight. Like you said, I think the best fight of the year. Charles do Bronx Oliveira on an absolute tear right now. He looks just absolutely amazing. I think one of the rare fighters who's kind of finding his prime. What is he, like 25 fights into his UFC career, something crazy like that? And he still has flashes where he'll get hit. He'll scare you if you're backing him, but comes through. I still think he seems to be getting better, but he goes up against Islam Makhachev here, who is thought to be kind of the second coming. And you can see that in the line. Makhachev sitting, you can get him minus 167 some books, but minus 184 on FanDuel, minus 190 on DraftKings. Seems crazy to me. But this is a fight where I kind of like the last one. I think either fighter could win this fight. I think either fighter could win it in a number of ways. I could see either fighter getting the knockout. Of course, Oliveira has all the submissions in the world. One of the best, maybe the best submission artist currently fighting in the UFC. And then you got Makhachev, who is great everywhere, also has the great wrestling. I think it's the wrestling that has the line here so far in favor of Makhachev. Maybe people are counting on that, wrestling control, but man, a dangerous guy to take to the ground in Charles Oliveira. So can't wait for this fight. I'm picking Charles. I just can't turn down a plus 160 on DraftKings for a guy as good as DuBronx is. But yeah, really looking forward to this one and interested to hear your pick. I think you're going DuBronx, but I don't know. Let's break it down, Tyler.
Man, yeah, it sucks. I've been on Oliveira this whole ride.
Yeah.
It sucks jumping off, but I'm jumping off. It's I mean, he is absolutely printed for us. The Chandler, Poirier's the dog, Gaethje, the whole run is just absolutely amazing. Just, man, I think either way, whoever you pick, you're either going to look the winner's going to be like minus 800 in relative, I think, is how the fight's going to play out. I just see a one-way domination. I think it's either Islam gets the takedowns, which I think he gets the takedowns for sure, which is why I'm confident in Islam. It's how does it go on the mat once he does get the takedowns, unless he gets knocked out before he can even get a takedown. And Oliveira, I think his best path to victory is the knockout. On the feet, it's night and day between these two. Oliveira hits like a truck. The dude has power in his hands, his kicks, everything. He is a very, very, very good striker. Islam is not a very good striker, and his one loss has come by KO. So his chin, I am very worried about Islam's chin. If this fight's on the feet, I'm scared. I think Islam does get the takedowns, though. And I think I don't think Charles, his takedown defense might be okay. We don't just see people try and take him down at the end of the day. I mean, why take down the guy that has the most submission wins and all of that? It's just, man, when these guys are, I don't know if it's because I look at Islam and I'm saying he's Habib, which no one's Habib at the end of the day, but that is my thought process, is the same style. People have said he's better than Habib. I'm not buying any of that, but their style is just so hard to go against. I mean, when he gets the takedown, Oliveira is going to be throwing off submissions left and right and all that. Do you think Islam hasn't seen every single submission if he's trying to throw up, or everybody else in that room, and where to put your arm and where to do this and where to do that? He's going to be positionally sound. He's going to be, I think, aware of every single thing. And then he's going to find the dominant position at some point. And when he does, I think the ground and pound will reign. The big thing that stands between these two is the physical strength from Islam is the most underrated part of his game, I believe. Bobby Green talked about it after his last fight. There's been multiple guys that have fought him, but they're like, when this guy grabs you, you just can't get away. He's just huge. He is huge for the division. I think he'll fight at 170. He probably has a couple more fights at 155 if he can keep winning, but the weight cut's very tough on him. The weight cut's tough on both guys, but Islam is just so strong. I think he grabs him. I think he gets him on the clinch. I think this fight is on the mat a lot. Yes, Oliveira off his back, but I'm going to trust Islam to stay safe on top. I think he finds mount, he finds some position, maybe even submits it himself. It sucks going against Oliveira. He is absolutely printed, but man, I just love this style. I love Islam. I've been like, how can I bet against this guy the whole time? I want to say I want Oliveira to win because he's one of my favorite fighters and all that, but I'll always cheer for where my money is. So unfortunately, I will be cheering for Islam come Saturday. I think he gets the takedowns. I think he can fend off the submissions. It sucks, but Islam's the pick, and I'm jumping off the Oliveira bandwagon.
It's going to be doubly painful, title. Your favorite fighters.
I know.
Win the title, and you're going to lose your money too. You're going to get the double whammy. I'm sticking
title jumping ship. It sucks. I got to do what I think though. You can't bet emotionally.
I hear you. I mean, I recently made the jump from always Mahomes to always Josh Allen.
Yeah, I like that. Always Josh Allen.
People are giving me a hard time about it, but I've been on it from week one, and I'm not jumping ship there. So I understand you gotta do what you gotta do. That's the greenbacks at the end of the day are going to decide who you're backing. But I'm sticking with DuBronx here. You talked about the strength of Islam. I mean, these guys are the same size. I think are pretty damn close to it. If you look at the weigh-ins, I mean, Charles looked just shredded in great shape. And the thing I like about Charles here, I don't think Islam's going to finish him. Honestly, it's going to be Oliveira trying to throw up the submissions, like you said. I don't think he gets one of those. I think he could. I don't think he will. But fights start on the feet. You say it often yourself. Oliveira is the better striker, and he's going to be able to let those strikes go because I think he won't. When you're as good off your back and as good submission game as DuBronx has, you can kind of fight striking wise a little bit freely.
So you think he'll keep that same style as he fought the other guys with his aggressiveness with Islam? See, I think he'll be more cautious because he's not going to. I thought that was his biggest strength in those last ones where you said, like, you're scared. Like, Gaethje knocks him down. He falls to his back because no one's going into his guard, where now he finally gets someone that will do that. And you think he's going to fight with that same aggressiveness on the feet?
I don't think he knows another way how to fight. I think he'll come out and try to win this fight. I think both fighters will. I think this is going to be. You said it was going to be a domination. We've agreed on most of these fights, but we do disagree here.
Well, I think the winner is going to be a domination, whether Oliveira just KOs him and it's like he didn't get touched, or it's the other way around.
Yeah, I think this will be a back and forth affair. I wouldn't be surprised if Oliveira. We've seen him have multiple comebacks. He's a guy who has the absolute heart of a champion. He's not going to gas out. I wouldn't be shocked if he, has the kind of
So
the
you
big
got to bet
comeback.
the over, hey? If you think it's back and forth, the grind, I mean, over 2.5 plus money, 1.5. You can't get that in DK,
Yeah,
but
I,
over
I actually
2.5
like
plus money.
Oliveira maybe to win in the first round, but if he doesn't, I think this could go deep into the fight, and then I wouldn't be shocked to see an Oliveira finish late. He's seen the bright light so many times. It's a big step up for Islam. I'm not doubting his talent or anything like that, but I just can't. The plus 160, I've got to take a shot on that. I'll have both of these guys, of course, in DFS. More Oliveira for me, but really looking forward to it. Should be a fantastic fight, and if Islam pulls off another dominant win here,
Well, then we know who the winner's getting, and that fight's going to be just as good as this one. Volkanovski's coming up, baby, and he's a problem as well. So you get Volkanovski against either of these two. I mean, that fight's just as good as this.
Who will be the favorite there between Islam and Volkanovski?
Well, I think the winner of this fight, because they're going to look so good, and I think they'll be, and Volkanovski coming up, I assume they'll be the favorites. But man, I'd be shocked. Like, I'm really curious to line. I have no clue. I'm guessing just like everyone else, but it couldn't be too big of a pound for pound number one in Volk. Everything's how he's looked. Like, he can't be too big of a dog against anybody.
For people that don't know, Volk is actually there in Abu Dhabi as the potential replacement for this fight. Obviously,
he got a text in the morning too saying one of the fighters, Volk isn't saying who, was struggling with the weight and to be on standby. Both fighters made it a pound and a half or half a pound less. But I did see a message someone dropped in Discord that he got the text like, be ready. And what a scene that would have been, DC.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Anything could happen before the fight. That would be absolutely wild to see Volk step in there. I hope that doesn't happen because it would just kind of ruin the DFS card.
We should be good now. But if it did happen yesterday, that would have been this morning. That would have been crazy.
Be insane. And I don't know. I won't be able to bet against Volk. I don't think against either of these two guys. But that'll be a fantastic fight. Whoever it is that emerges victorious here. This one itself obviously should be awesome as well. Should be an awesome card. UFC 280. It does start bright and early, especially if you're over in the western area of the US like me and Title. But yeah, get those DraftKings teams in early. I think these contests are going to fill. They probably will fill by tonight, Friday night. So yeah, get in early if you're planning to play DFS. Should be an awesome card. Thanks for watching. As always, tons of Run Pure Sports content coming up. Football, big football weekend, of course, and NBA just kicked off a couple days ago. So we're deep in those NBA streets as well. Again, RPS Heater 25. If you do want to join us, good time to do so. That'll do it. Should be awesome fights. Thanks for watching. As always, for Title, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.
Good luck, everybody.